Welcome back to Fantasy Turf War, the show where 64 teams go head-to-head to see who's the ultimate champion. I am, of course, Commissioner Cory, back again on this lovely Wednesday, Deadpool Day. Yes, I have my tickets. We have an interview for you this morning and this afternoon, wherever you are, whatever time you are. It's still a good interview. Today we have Gilly, Ryan Gilmartin, who has a podcast called Saturdays in the Swamp, which just covers all things Florida Gators, so go check that out. Before we get started, I had a couple of updates for you. We only have 2 spots left in the league, so that we have 62 teams. So we have 2 spots left. So if you want to join, reach out to me, Fantasy Turf War and everything, or fantasyturfwar@gmail.com. Let me know, and we will get you situated. But we will be locking down teams by the end of the week, and reach out now. Also, we have a contest that will be starting once we hit 100 subscribers. We are currently about halfway there. Getting some real momentum after these last couple of weeks, and looking forward to all the success that comes. And if you want to follow along, win some awesome prizes, make sure that you are tuning in, checking out the website, get on our email list, and stay informed. And that's the only way to win the contest. So, here we go. Ryan Gilmartin, Gilly, Saturdays in the Swamp. All right. Good afternoon, Ryan. How are you?
Good. How are you, man? Appreciate having me on.
Yeah, happy to have you. Welcome to the league. It's a pretty exciting time. So we're getting closer and closer. So it's getting good.
Yeah, I keep telling my friends, I'm like, I'm in a 64-man league. We're going to see how it goes. It's like, how does that even work? I'm like, we break it down, 16 teams, whatever, 4 divisions, but I'm excited.
Yeah, and it does take some explaining, right? Because you say 64 and people are like, you must be drafting so-and-so's cousin who's not even on the team yet, and it must be ridiculous. It's like, nah, it's not quite like that. It's still enjoyable. You gotta keep it fun. So
right, make it work.
Yep, but it's been exciting, and we're starting to do the shows now, and interviews are starting to roll out, and I think we're 80 days from regular season, so it's getting time, and it's been pretty cool. But welcome to the show. Welcome to Fantasy Turf War. 64 teams, some pretty serious competition. But we wanted to take the time today and get to know you a little bit, introduce you to the audience and the other teams, and wanted to go over that unhealthy obsession with Florida Gators you got there behind you. And let's start with, what is your podcast, kind of what brought you to it, and tell us all about it.
Yeah, so the podcast is Saturdays in the Swamp by Gator Gilly. I guess why I became a Florida fan, I grew up, my dad went to the University of Florida, and from the moment I could, remember anything, it was always Florida Gators. We watched from all sports. And then we lived in Jacksonville and the Melbourne area, but mainly Jacksonville. And so it was kind of close ties as well. We didn't live there for too long, but long enough to where when I was coming of age of watching sports, it was like, this is what we got. And so my dad took me to, games when I was young, and when they'd come, I live in Dallas now. I've been here since I was 4 years old. So when the Gators would come to Dallas, whether it was a football game, a basketball game, we would go just because at that time, 15 years ago, flashback, if Florida came to Dallas, it was a big deal because that was very, very rare. So grew up just watching them and loving them, and I got to see some success in my early stages of being a fan, from the back-to-back basketball championships, and then the football one, 08, 06, and then 08 and 06. And so kind of hard not to cheer for a winning team, and then it's been a bit of a struggle for the past 15 years or so, but that's kind of how I got started. The podcast really started in college. It was COVID, and I was really bored. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I had always had a desire to podcast, but I didn't. There's so many. I feel like a lot of people talk about the same things very often. Everybody has a sports podcast, or everybody has a travel and vacation podcast, whatever they've, there's a lot of similar things. And so I was like, I don't know what I could do. And it was the season they were coming back from COVID. So it was no fans, nothing. And I was like, what if I just record myself talking about, recap, preview Florida Gator football and see what happens. So I did it for a couple episodes, and I remember COVID, going away and school kind of becoming more serious. And so I got kind of busy again. And so I recorded 6 or 7 episodes. And honestly, the last one I recorded got a lot of traction, at least a lot more than I had expected. And so then kind of rambling here, but so then me and my cousin started this other podcast called Relatively Uncharted, which he's in this league as well. And that was when I was like, why would I not, take something that I already have built? I already built the platform. I already have somewhat of a following. And why would I not use that? Because I know how to podcast now. So that's kind of where I'm at. Got season tickets to Florida games this year, so I'm going to be able to provide a lot of content. I'll be there for in-action games, and every week we'll be there. So I'm excited.
Very cool. So the 06-08, that was the Tebow days, huh?
Yeah, so Tebow won it, 06 as a freshman, Heisman 07, and then 08 was his big year.
Okay, so I grew up in Chicago, so college football was a thing, but not a very good thing for us. So never really had a college team to root for. One of the only things I learned in my first year of college is how to play Xbox, and that involved the old, and I don't say it, that's the old, but the NCAA Xbox game, and that's where I kind of got my feet wet into college football when I would always play as the Florida Gators because of Tebow. So I could definitely relate. My imaginary team in that game was pretty good. So
yeah,
and then I grew up through my career, I ended up being stationed out in South Carolina, and that's SEC territory. And I quickly had to figure out what lines I was going to draw. And as long as it wasn't Alabama, I think my house was going to be safe. But then I was like 10, 15 minutes from USC, so I had to root for that team. But now I'm up here in Raleigh, so it's NC State is the team. But we all hate Duke now, pretty much as they hate Alabama. So maybe not as much. There's a lot of people that hate Alabama, but you
get down there in the South, and Alabama has some bad ties with everybody down there.
Yeah,
they've ran them around too much.
And I had never, again, growing up in Chicago, I'd never really understood the hype. I mean, I'd watch it on TV every Saturday, of course, and you watch the playoffs and all that, but I'd never really understood what that meant until I was down in Mississippi, and we went to an LSU game, and that was my first SEC college football game where it was just packed. I'd gone to U of I games, University of Illinois games, and maybe a fourth of the stadium was full. It was one of those, they're playing and you could just kind of walk up and down the stands. But yeah, LSU was just packed, and it was a whole thing. And I was like, this is what I was missing. So college football is a good time for sure.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was talking to somebody the other day, and we were kind of going back and forth on the NFL versus NCAA, and obviously a viewership and just by a fandom, I guess. NFL gets a bigger draw. They're on bigger television networks and whatnot. But I was trying to explain to him what college football, because he was from the northern. And I was like, dude, I mean, as big as NFL is, yeah, it's awesome. But when you get down south, man, people take their college football really seriously. That's what you live and die by in the fall.
Yep.
And so
it's everything.
It's good stuff.
Yep. It literally defines the towns you live in. Just being in Columbia, there was, the east side of town had all USC stuff. The west side of town had all Clemson stuff. And you could see where the lines were drawn, just driving down the street. And it's a big deal. So I certainly get it. And college football is definitely where the entertainment's at. For the folks that don't live, I'd say in the South, the closest comparison I have being from Chicago is probably Ohio State. Ohio State's a pretty reputable team. They draw crowds. Even the Notre Dame games, I haven't really seen that kind of level of crowd and intensity. Ohio State probably be the closest, but I love college football now. Just watching the environment and the game itself is pretty entertaining. So
yeah, that used to dictate my Monday mornings when I was a kid in school. It's what happened over the weekend, and that's how I'll be feeling.
Yeah. So I think the idea of you having a podcast about a college-specific team, I did a little bit of research, and I don't see too many other things like it. So it's pretty interesting that you're covering a specific team, and I think that you're onto something good. I think you picked a very good team to go with. I think you're on the right track, and it's certainly entertaining to see when people are finding those corners. There's nothing here. I'm going to take this space and I'm going to make it my thing, and you're doing it. So congratulations on that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, man, I looked it up and I was trying to see. Obviously, there's some professional ones out there that recruiters and like guys that announce games, they talk about Florida on there, but I couldn't find anything really too crazy like a guy in the room doing it. So I was like, why not? And it started off as enjoyment. I just wanted to talk about Florida football and give them my take. I feel like I'm a big enough fan to tune into enough games to give people a decent, educated recap preview of what's going on. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the same thing that we're doing here at Fantasy Turf War, is that we're not polished news anchors. We don't have corporate experience, that kind of thing. So it's a very raw, fresh, real take on the sport and everything that's involved. And I think that's a space that should be occupied more often. You're doing it, so that's great.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Of course. All right, let's switch gears here. Let's talk shop. So I know college, but there's the professional league. We gotta work on that too. So you are coming to the league about middle of the pack, and you bring 15 years of experience in fantasy football. So that's not nothing for sure. But 15 years, the real question is, how many championships do you have under your belt?
Yeah, so 15 years comes with a lot of leagues played, and sometimes multiple leagues played a year. There was a phase where 3 of my buddies, so 4 of us, would play in a 4-man league. So I don't know if I count those at all, because they're like, it's a 4-man league. They're crazy boosted rosters. But from just a traditional, you run it with your 10, 12-man buddies, I would probably have won 3, honestly. So I grew up playing with my uncle's league with my dad. That's how I started. I was, 9, 10, whatever I was. And it was tough. I remember getting like second and third a few times and feeling good about that. And I don't think I cracked a win, in like a real win, like not a 4-man league win, until like senior year or college of senior year of high school or college. So yeah, I think I won. I was actually looking at the other day. I have a trophy in my room. I think I've won 2 of the last 3 and 3 of the last 5. So I've been on the hot streak lately. I got second the year that I didn't win. Nice. And so I've been playing pretty good lately. So we'll see how it carries over.
Yeah. Let's say that's overall 15 years, and I deliberately asked how many years and not how many leagues you've played over those years, just because if I did those numbers for myself, it would not be very impressive. But even just on a year basis, if you're saying you've been 5 championships or in 15 years, something like that, like it's pretty good. And at least you've won, so you know what that takes and what that feels like, and you kind of know how to get there. So, and then we've been on a hot streak, so that's something to keep in mind. Is it does happen quite a bit in leagues. You get on those runs for 3-5 years where you're just on a tear, and then like myself, you just kind of fall off, and then But luckily, I don't have to play this year, so we're good.
Yeah, sometimes lately, the past few years, it feels like every roster move you make, it just like you did it right, and you chose the right guy the right week, and that's just what it takes. There's a lot of luck. Obviously, if you know matchups and potential breakout games, you could throw the right guy in at the right time, but you never know when the dude that is predicted 8 points will go off for 3 touchdowns. So very true.
Yep, and that is the world of fantasy football. So this year, you have affectionately decided to name your name. Or your team name is, sorry.
We are. Oh, are you going to announce it? My bad.
No, go ahead.
I didn't know. Yeah, I chose Swamp Kings. I figured if I was going to be advertising and putting my brand out there, Saturdays in the Swamp, Gator Gilly, I'd kind of keep it on track. So yeah, the documentary that came out recently about Florida football, the Tebow era, actually was named Swamp Kings, and that was what came to mind right away.
Very cool. I like it. So, and I should have covered this earlier, so I apologize for that. But what is the Gilly? Like, where does that name come from? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Sometimes it sounds crazy when I call myself Gilly, and people are like, that's kind of a random thing to call yourself. But my last name is Gilmartin, so Gilmartin. And kind of funny story, and me and my dad talked about it the other day, was my grandpa was called Gilly back in his day when he used to kick it at my age, and it carried on through his life. And then my dad, it wasn't passed down at all. My dad was called Gilly by his buddies, and by not even being known that his father was called Gilly. And then the same thing happened to me. I was middle school, late elementary school. Coaches called me it. Friends called me it, and it wasn't anything that my dad was like, "This is Gilly Jr." It was straight up a raw, natural just natural nickname. And so I've been able to use it for a lot of things. Like the G goes well with certain, if you're trying to, get a catchy name for different brands. And so Gator Gilly was what came to mind, and I feel like it clicks, and it gives people something to tune into. It's a personality in a sense. They can follow along with what I'm doing and what I'm doing in life in general also.
Very cool, and I like the story there. So on a day by day, do people just know you as Gilly?
Yeah, so I'll get texts for a group chat, and they want to like say something to me, or make sure I see the text. They'll put Gilly in there. For the most part, coaches called me Gilly. Sometimes they went by Gilmartin. Very rarely, you know how it is. They don't call you by your first name. And then just friends, like they always call me Gilly. So it's kind of just been a thing that's if they don't know me well, they'll call me Ryan, and that's just I feel like a respect if you don't kind of thing, but. Sure. It's always funny to see who like feels comfortable enough to call me Gilly, and like you hear it and you're like, oh, interesting. I mean, because I never care, whoever calls me it's my name, right? So, but it's funny to see who feels comfortable enough to say it.
Very cool. Yeah, it's interesting, and it like you said, it's the what do they call it? Alliteration, where it's the So that it's a great name. It fits. It's a great story, so it all fits. It seems like it's a perfect match for you, and we'll. I'll slowly transition to Gilly as we become more comfortable in the league. But
whenever you're ready, man.
Awesome. So we do have a couple other things to discuss on the football side, because you are a Florida guy, but you had mentioned you live in Dallas, Texas. So the natural implication there would be that you have a Texas fandom. But to the people in Texas, you kind of have to let them know what your actual favorite NFL team is.
Yeah. It's been a problem my entire life. I've been here since I was 4, like I said, so 20 years of this, yes. So I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and that led me to becoming a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Don't really know why, how, the affinity to it, but I don't know how old I was. You can ask my parents. I'd have to ask them. But they said like from the second I could choose who I wanted to cheer for, it was Philadelphia. And I didn't live in Philly post-birth longer than a year, so it's kind of a wild fandom to cling to. But since I've been alive, compared the two teams, I've chosen the right team. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, it's interesting. I saw when you register, everyone gets all this information, and it says a Florida show with a guy from Texas, and he likes the Eagles. And then I watched your reaction as you said you were an Eagles fan. It was almost like I don't want to say it, but I have to say it kind of thing. And it's always interesting. But you look, it's been a good few years for the Eagles, so why not? We definitely know which Kelsey brother you like. That makes it easy there. I happen to like that Kelsey more than the other Kelsey, but it's what it is. It's just and same thing, right? I grew up in Chicago, but I'm a Raiders fan. I've got Raiders stuff behind me, and it's just one of those things that I clung to. And it's funny you mentioned like your parents let you choose, almost like it's like in my family we did the same thing. They're all Cowboys fans except for my brother who's a Packers fan. We can all agree to hate him, but
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's almost like a religion, right? It's like, oh, we're gonna give you the ability to choose the right team. We're not gonna push you one way or the other, but it's
It's definitely a weird thing if you really sit down and think about it, the fandom of sports in general. But let's just like not think too deep on it and just just roll with it. Yeah, I've had to answer that. You mentioned the face that I made when you asked, and so I've had to answer that question of who are you, what's your team, too many times now in my life being in Dallas, and it's always the same reaction from them when I say Philly. They're like, oh my gosh, and so it is what it is. I'm used to it by now. Yeah.
So being in the Dallas area or the Texas, let's just say Texas in general, and then having grown up in Florida, do you at least root for a home team, or you're a Jaguars supporter or Cowboys Texans supporter, or is it just Eagles and that's it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, my dad grew up more of his life in Florida than I did, so he grew up in the time frame that the Dolphins were good. I guess they're better now. They're back to winning, but there was a phase that was a little rough. So he's a Miami Dolphins fan. He's not diehard by any means. NFL is not his favorite sport, but he does cheer for the Dolphins. And so I'll cheer for the Jaguars. I'll cheer for the Dolphins. I don't mind the Bucks. They're all right. Like any Florida team. I love the state of Florida, not even just the University of Florida. I want to live there. That's kind of where I want to be in my life. It just makes me, feel happy. So, yeah, I'll cheer for anybody there. I'm a supporter of all the teams in Dallas outside of the Cowboys. Well, I'm a Cowboys supporter now. I guess we can get into that in a second. I don't know if you're planning on asking what's going on in my career or whatever, but yeah, I'll cheer for. I don't have any affinity to Houston, so I don't really care for it. One of my good buddies is a Houston fan, so I'll ride with them. But okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm a supporter of Dallas as a whole. I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I like to see them win for sure.
Cool. Yeah, let's dive into it. Right. So you mentioned you're working on stuff. So where are you at, and kind of what are you working on, and what's coming up?
Yeah. So I just finished up my first. So I graduated college in the fall of 2022, and I started a internship / basically a full-time job, hourly wise, with the Cowboys in like March of 23, and I just finished up that year about a month or two ago, and I had to make a decision whether I was going to go back or not for the second season due to training camp coming up and whatnot and going out to California. So because of certain reasons and just things that I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go in my life financially and just things like that, I had to make a choice of what I wanted to put up on the top of my pedestal. So I'm in a job transition right now. Working on something with that, and then kind of growing these brands with the Relatively Uncharted with Nick, my cousin, and then with Saturdays in the Swamp, trying to grow these out, see what happens this fall. And yeah, so like I said before, I wasn't a Cowboys fan all my life. Honestly, I'll say it for the first time on camera. I hated the Cowboys my entire life. And then I got the call and was grateful, or was lucky enough and blessed enough to get the opportunity, and something that you can't really turn down when something like that calls and knocks on your door. So I did that, and through that job, like, you see the sport in a different light. It's not necessarily two logos or two brands playing each other. It's people playing each other on weekends, on Sundays and Mondays, whatever. And so you get to know these guys, and you develop personal relationships with them, and in a sense, nothing too crazy, but you get to know these guys, and so you want to see them win, right? I mean, never do you want to see someone that you cheer for or you're friends with like lose. Like, that's just not something. If you're not a good friend, then right. Yeah. So getting to know these guys, like basically taking care of them and getting them. I worked in the equipment room for the Cowboys, and so I was, I'm the right hand man, helping them out with whatever it is, from laundry to jersey apparel to practice gear. So you're there to help them, and so you want to see them win on Sundays. You want to see them happy and successful, and so yeah. As long as the guys that I worked with that are on the roster, as long as they're there, I'll cheer for them. I'll ride for them. I want to see them win. I want to see them, see success, and because there is a lot of work that's been put in that people don't know about in the NFL. There's a lot of time spent there, and so if the guys can, get a chance at it, I'd love to see them go for it.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective to be able to get working in as an equipment. What was the actual title? I don't want to misrepresent.
Yeah, you could call it equipment manager if you want to.
Okay, yeah, it's an interesting perspective being an equipment manager for a team, because, like you said, it's not just what you see on Thursday, Sunday, Monday. It's a machine. It's a day-to-day business machine that is cranking through every day, and it only becomes like a public-facing thing once a week. So I can imagine you get pretty invested with the team, and yeah, it's almost like a family relationship where you want to see everyone succeed because it's the machine you're working on, and not just something you happen to dial into on the television once a week. So it's interesting. I wanted to. I'm going to edit all this gap out, but I wanted to ask, what was. Like, how did you get involved with like the equipment manager process? Like, how did that become to be a thing? Because I think, like from my perspective, I'm a Raiders guy, but the idea of working for the Raiders in any capacity, even as like a professional fan, like I don't even know where to start. Like I've never, and I should. I'm gonna go Google this tonight. But like how do you get to be in that kind of position, and what brought you to that?
Okay, yeah. So it's honestly a lucky story. I grew up playing most sports, and so when I was around the age of 10 or 11, I was playing baseball on a select team, and one of the kids' dads happened to be the head equipment guy for the Cowboys,
Cool.
and so made that connection. At a young age, parents knew each other well. Great people, awesome guy. Um, so then I went to school, went to Oklahoma State, got my degree in sports and coaching science. I worked with the women's basketball team there actually while I was there. Basketball was the sport that I played. So I worked with them, and I was coming upon graduation, and I didn't know what I was going to do. It's kind of a tough world to crack. Sports is a really, really weird world to get into, and
Yep.
kind of to know what you want to do in the sports world, because there's a lot of things you can do, and some of it's really close to the team, and some of it may have the team logo on it, label on it, but it's not as close as you think it is.
Right.
And so yeah, I just texted him randomly. I was like, "Hey, I'm graduating, this fall, seeing if you know of anything." I wasn't even like looking to work for him, because that's like a crazy, that's a crazy opportunity. I wasn't even asking for that. I was like, if you know of anything out there that a minor league team for basketball, football, baseball, whatever. And he responded in 5 minutes. Like I said, he's a great guy. He's an awesome dude. I responded in like 5-10 minutes, and he's like, "Yeah, man, you can come work in my equipment room if you want to. This is how it works. Da 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 da. If you like it, come back for a year too." And so, man, it's one of those things you like. Yeah, right now it's like, dang, did I make the right decision? And I know I did. It was a long thought out deal, but it's to think about. To your point, anybody will get the opportunity to play for a team they cheer for, or even just a team in general. Me getting the opportunity to cheer for a team that's the largest franchise in the world, right? Like, you're on the biggest brand with the biggest label, and so it was an unbelievable experience, and I learned a lot, not even just about NFL and the background of it all, and how the week works going up to Sunday, but also about myself and what I prioritize in my life. So I guess if a tidbit to kind of give people, if you're trying to work in equipment, trying to work in the NFL and any professional capacity, if you go to college, go to that athletic office on day one and knock on that door and just ask, "Hey man, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to end up. Like, what can I do here? What can I do during my 4 years here?" And that'll put you in a position. So like, you'll be in a great position come graduation, because you'll have made connections. You'll have the experience. College coaches know so many people. Like, the way the trainers and the equipment guys hire is they call a bunch of SEC, Big 12 equipment guys and trainers, and they're like, "Hey, I need a guy to fill the spot. Who do you know?" And
Okay.
so, yeah, I mean, it's get involved in your university athletics as soon as you can, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? And I guess I'd never really thought of that as it's just like the athletes themselves, in that you pull the talent from the colleges, and what a better way to get the talent you need than to pull them from the pre-existing environments of college and say, "Hey, come on up." And yeah, that makes total sense. So yeah, do the networking, put the work in, and hopefully they bring you along. So that's a good tidbit for the folks at home. With your time with the Cowboys, did you have any crazy moments, any funny things, any awesome stories, any feel goods, or was it just work, 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 work? I gotta imagine there's just something cool happened.
Yeah, no, there's there. Don't get me wrong. There is work, 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 work. We're working 60, 65 hours a week, if not 70 if you're traveling and going to the games. But no, there's some awesome times. I mean, when you win, it's fun. There's little moments in the locker room that happen all the time, with just guys being guys and messing around with each other. And so, yeah, man, there was definitely some fun things. I guess I wanted to give y'all, just so I don't tease everybody about it, but the Cowboys played the Lions in like a late season game, and it went to I think it went down to the wire, and it was like the Lions scored. They were going to go for two to take the lead, and they got it. Or no, I'm trying to think. I don't know. We got to stop maybe, and then there's a flag, and they scored. Yeah, that's what it was. We got to stop on the first possession. There's a flag. So then they went for it again. They scored, and then there was another flag on them. So they had to go for a third time, and the Cowboys got to stop. One of the players deflected a pass and pretty much won them the game. And so I happened to be on the sideline for that game with two of my coworkers, and so like I think my family was at that game as well. So it was an electric environment, almost a playoff environment, and just like one of those times where you're all invested in, like your heart's on the line here, like you're winning it, you're riding and dying with this team right now, and so that was super cool. But yeah, man, you got to meet. This is actually a cool thing. I got to meet a Florida Gator player that I grew up watching as a kid. You know, when I was high school, middle school. His name is Dante Fowler Jr. If you're familiar with the name, played with the Jaguars, been in Atlanta, was with Dallas for a little bit. But yeah, man, he was with the Cowboys for the season that I was there, and me and him, I got to hang out with him a little bit, just like in the locker room and help him pregame and stuff like that. So
Cool.
yeah, it was awesome. It's one of those things like you don't really think could ever happen, right? I was 13 years old watching this guy play football for the Florida Gators, and then before you know it, I was hanging out with him in the locker room, you know, getting him ready to play on Sundays. So.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. And the story about, you know, being on the field with the team when they won like that, that's got to be, you know, one of the, you know, memories for the ages kind of thing where like that's always going to stick with you. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, and I'll ask you later if you got any cool memorabilia because it might be a topic later on. But I'm sure, you know, if you got Tony Romo's towel thrown at you, I imagine that's probably framed, you know, somewhere, nice and big. Someone will pay good money for it, I'm sure.
Yes,
sir. So you said you chose not to go back. Is there? I know you're building out your podcast. Is there something like a bigger thing you're headed towards, or was it just not the thing for you this year?
Yeah. Right now I'm trying to get into the other side of equipment world, which is the kind of the supplying side. And yeah, I got a few connections to 2 or 3 different companies here. I'm kind of deciding on which one I want to go with, and so that's where I'm at right now. And yeah, just kind of seeing where the chips fall, and I hopefully will know where I'll be at come July. So
very cool. It's exciting stuff. So it's also great to hear that like you were able to take the experience you had with the Cowboys and use it to propel you into the next thing, whatever it may be, even if it's just the podcast. And I say just a podcast. Podcasts are awesome, but you know, like even if it's the podcast, it was able to kind of fuel that fire for you and get you there, and hopefully in a professional capacity to a company that you want to be with for the long term. And if they want to be represented in the show, that's cool too. You know, I'm happy to have them. But yeah, it's sure. Exciting stuff. So it sounds like you've got a pretty cool off season here in the last 80 days before we get into the regular season for yourself. So it'll be an interesting story to watch for sure.
Definitely got a lot going.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then we mentioned the other podcast, which your cousin will be representing. So we'll talk to him in a later episode. So we'll save all of that content for that. But yeah, it's been interesting. So let's shift into what we call overtime. This is how we end up wrapping the show, or how we wrap the shows up is 3 questions, no preparation, no study guides. I will preface there's no math, so you're good there.
Thank God.
I hate math, so I'm good at it, but I hate it. All right, so 3 questions. Question number 1, do you believe in aliens?
I'll say that the possibility that they exist is very large.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
All right. Yeah, and we get answers from all over. Some people are like hardcore yes, hardcore no. So there's no right or wrong. So
to say no is crazy, and then to say yes is crazy. So it's like the possibility that they exist is out there.
Okay. All right. I like it. Question number 2, and this may play into what we were talking about before. What is the most unique item or unusual item in your office, and what's the story behind it?
Oh man.
And I'll filibuster a little bit, and I'll say that unique or unusual can be pretty much anything you want. We've had so many different things show up. We've had like Halloween decorations pop in. We've had some stolen goods pop in. So it could be anything you want. And then even if it's just fan gear is even good too. So whatever's got a good story behind why you got it.
Yeah. So my dad has a lot of really cool stuff in here. We have got a signed Emmett Smith helmet and photo behind me. And then next to it, where am I pointing? Yeah, over here. Next to it is the back to back, or no, it's the only time that an NCAA team has won a championship in the same year, which was Florida Gator basketball in '06 and Florida Gator football in '06. So that's really cool. But to answer your question, there's an American flag. You can't see it. I guess I could grab it in here a second, but there's an American flag that it flew over a base over in, I want to say, Afghanistan. Sorry, it flew over a base in Iraq. And one of my dad's really good buddies was um, I don't want to, properly say the wrong military term. He was high up in command at the base, and so upon closing the base down and leaving, they took the flag and he gave it to my mom and my dad.
Wow.
And so, uh, yeah, it's a pretty cool. My dad loves it. Obviously, it's something that's very honorable, and so. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, of all the sports things in here, I got a cool Red Sox things up on the wall over here, which is a whole other story about Red Sox. But um, my dad's a huge Red Sox fan. Grandpa has ties to it. But yeah, the flag takes the cake.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and there's only a few bases in Iraq. So I was prior Air Force myself, so I definitely understand. The flag being flown is a very significant thing, especially if it was upon closing. So. Yeah, you want to thank him for his service for sure, and I'm glad that you were able to preserve that, that someone had the forethought to preserve that, because I think a lot of times that kind of stuff just gets missed. But I'm glad to see that it's in good hands. Does it have a case? If not, I'd like to give you one.
Yeah, there's a case on it,
Okay.
and it's folded up, military style. It says Camp Fernandez. Does that sound familiar?
It does not, but I can look into it on the back channels and figure out where it was. But
Camp
yeah.
Fernandez Long Plank is what I think it says. But
Okay.
yeah, my
Yeah.
dad's one of my dad's best friends since they were kids. Ended up, climbing the ranks in the military, and that was kind of the honor he got to give back to my dad in a sense.
That's pretty cool. And there's not many flags that were flown in bases in general, compared to all the other flags that exist out there. And then to be able to have the one that was the last one that was up it's a pretty significant thing. And I'm glad again that someone had the forethought to preserve that, and that your family gets to keep that. That's pretty cool.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that.
Yeah. All right. That's probably, I'm gonna prejudice myself here a little bit and say that that's probably the best answer I've gotten on that question of all the interviews to date. And I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, that's a good one. All right,
Yes,
third
sir.
question, and you can get as sentimental as you want. You can get as goofy as you want. All of the teams have done all of the above. So imagine you have a message to send to the entire world, and the entire world will listen for the next 30 seconds. What is your message?
Um, I would say, be crazy. This is what I would say. I would say be crazy enough to believe that whatever it is that you believe in is possible. Because a lot of times we kill our own dreams and beliefs because we don't even think it's possible. And I believe in a guy that I got to actually interview on our podcast with my cousin. We get to have him on. Incredible guy. He said a quote that you have to anchor infinite possibility with necessity. So if it's something you really want to do and you really want to get it done, you need to anchor with some things and put some action towards it. So there's infinite possibility in the world. There's so many things we can do. You just got to put some action towards it and believe that it's possible. And I promise, like it's crazy to see what can be done.
Yeah, that's a great message. That's very similar to how we got our start here. Is we had done it on paper and we just said, "Is it possible?" and just took steps, and then another step and another step, and now we're here. So it is possible. I believe it's Elon Musk who says, like, just by acknowledging that something is possible, it already exists, even by a small
Yep.
percentage. So just by saying that whatever your dream is real. It's a thing. It now exists, which makes it possible. So go get it. That's a very powerful message that I think people need to hear. Sorry, I got a Roomba going on back there, but
yeah, you're good.
But yeah, I think that's a great message, and I think it's a great way to end the interview today. So, Ryan, Gilly, where can we find you at? Where can we stay in touch and keep up to date with what you're working on? And then will you be publicly sharing your update with your professional stuff that we were just talking about?
Yeah, I can be open about that. I'll let you know what I end up doing, where I land, come that time, whenever it happens. Yeah, I'll keep the fans in touch. But on YouTube, I'll be posting. I kind of didn't mention this, so I'm going to be streaming also the NCAA 25 game that they're launching again, the relaunch of that game. So going to be on there as Gator Gilly as well. But on YouTube, you can find the podcast and the stream at Gator Gilly, capital G, capital G. Pretty simple. On Instagram, I believe I am Gilly or Gator _Gilly, and then the last one might be my Twitch, which is where I'll be streaming the game at. Let me see what that one is. Gator _Gilly as well. So pretty simple. Gator Gilly, and then Gator _Gilly, and then Gator Gilly.
Sounds good. And then we'll we'll link all those into the show notes.
Yeah, there's also a link in my one of my bios that has the Gilly's Globe, which has just all the stuff that I'm working on. So yeah.
Very cool. And then we'll also link to your other podcasts as well for both you and your cousin, so that people can check you out there as well.
I figured I'd let Nick take the cake on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's talking to about the quote that just came up. I'm already going to go listen, because now I want to hear the rest of what he's got to say. So consider me a listener. I'm going to go pull it up while I'm doing the editing today. So
episode 23, I want to say. His name's Mike Gabler, former Survivor player. So awesome guy, incredible man, very wise. I'll say that. Yeah. It was a privilege getting to speak to him and learning from him. So very grateful that I got to meet him in a sense.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm going to go check that episode out, because it definitely sounds like he's got a good head on his shoulders, and I want to hear what else he has to say. So cool. I encourage everyone else to go check that out as well. But Ryan, it has been an honor and a privilege to be talking to you today. I hope you have at least... I keep telling everyone I wish that they have a great season and that they win, but then I realize if I tell all 64 of you guys that, then I'm a liar to 63 of you. So I wish you the best in the season, and I hope you come away with at least a top 8 and make the playoffs. And if nothing else, I hope you don't lose. This seems to be the consensus. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. And I think it's going to be interesting. There's all kinds of backgrounds in the league. And it'll be really interesting to see how this all shapes up. And I can't wait to get to the regular season already. So it's pretty exciting times.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be a part of this. It's something I saw, and I was like, that'd be really cool to get on and share the story. So fantasy football is something that I love, and then getting to tie in what I'm doing with my brands and other things is super cool. So very grateful for the opportunity.
Of course. Yeah, we're happy to have you. And I think on that note, we'll wrap there and say that best of luck, sir, and we will see you in the draft.
Thank you.
All righty. Thanks.